Hey everybody, I am Melissa Heikkilä, Senior Reporter for AI at MIT Technology Review. It's fantastic to see so many of you join me today on LinkedIn Live to talk to Gareth Edwards, director of Star Wars Rogue One and the new upcoming film, The Creator. Hey Gareth, how's it going?
It's going well, thank you.
Great. So before we dive into today's conversation, I want to have a quick clip of The Creator.
The next marvelous advancement in robotics is artificial intelligence.
We should never have let AI out of the box.
Execute her, or we go extinct.
We're not killing the kid. What do they call you? What's your name?
My name is Alfie. You're my friend?
You said you want me.
They're coming to get me.
Seatbelts. Whoa.
What do you want, sweetie?
For robots to be free.
We don't have that in the fridge. How about ice cream?
The future never looked better. The future never looked better. The future never looked better.
The Creator, rated PG-13, only in theaters September 29th. Get tickets now.
Cool. So, I saw this movie a couple of days ago and I can't stop thinking about it. But, could you tell our audience what is happening? Like, what do we just see? What is the movie about?
That's a very good question. I'm kind of the worst person ever to ask that question to, because I've sort of ended up specializing in telling stories that take 2 hours. And so when someone says, say it in 3 sentences, I'm always like, oh my God, how long do we have? But I'll try. Okay, so it's in the near future. The world's divided in two, and essentially in the West, they've banned AI completely. And in Asia, they didn't. And so they carried on developing it like at a staggering pace to the point where it's like near human-like levels. And so there's this war going on over there to eradicate it. And they discovered that there's been this breakthrough. Up until then, the only AI in existence is kind of what you call copy and paste. They scan the human brain, they kind of digitally rebuild it. And so everyone's kind of a copy of someone else, a human, original human. And then they figured out how to make the first AI that can grow and eventually supersede us. And it's like the big fear they've always had. It's the singularity and all those words. And so essentially they send these soldiers, this special forces team over there to destroy it. And when they finally get in, a little bit of a spoiler alert, but I think the trailer shows that it's in the form of like a 6-year-old child. And so essentially the movie is John David Washington taking this child through this futuristic war zone, knowing that she's being taken to her death ultimately, and just how that starts to affect him as they go together on this crazy sort of adventure.
Yeah. How did you come up with that idea?
It's from a load of places. Like there was so many. One of the starting points was I just finished Star Wars. Mm-hmm. My girlfriend lives in the Midwest, lives in Iowa, and we were like, she had to go see her family. We're like, let's drive there because it's like one of those epic across America journeys of like 3 or 4 days. And I wasn't planning on thinking about any new films or anything, but I had my headphones in and I was just listening to music because we were there for hours. And I was just looking out, and we were in the Midwest, and there's all tall grass, like farmlands just passing you by. And then suddenly there was this factory which looked like it had a little Japanese logo on it or something. And I was thinking, I wonder what they're making in there. Mm-hmm. And just the way I am, and I kind of want to do a robot movie next. I was like, imagine if it was robots. And I thought, imagine being that robot and you'd only ever known the factory. That's where you were built. You maybe would just been made a few days ago. What would you think the first time you stepped out of that factory and saw this grass and the sky and the whole world? And you'd like, what would that be like? And I just thought, that's a really interesting moment in a movie. That's a nice idea. And I just went to throw it away. Like, I don't know what that would be. Like you have these thoughts all the time. And then we went a bit further on the journey and suddenly it was like, I know what it could be. And I just kept playing with it in my mind. And by the time we got to her parents, I kind of had the whole film mapped out in my head. And that's very rare. Like normally it takes months to like figure out a story, and it just fell into place really quickly. And So I thought, oh, there's probably something in this. I should keep pursuing it.
Very, very cool. If you're just joining us now, I am Melissa Heikkilä, Senior Reporter for AI at MIT Technology Review, speaking with Gareth Edwards, director of Rogue One and the upcoming film The Creator. Now, Gareth, I think this movie is really going to hit a nerve because this past year we've seen this crazy, crazy AI boom. Like, it's taken over my life, and everyone wants to talk to me about ChatGPT. And, you have in this film, you talk about a lot of really interesting things about our relationship with the AI. Like in the beginning of the film, there was this really, it's not funny, but I thought it was extremely funny. This line where someone's like, oh, I heard the robots wanted to kill us because they wanted our jobs. And I was like, oh, okay. That is clearly one of the anxieties people have right now, along with is AI going to destroy us? How much of what's happening now influenced the film?
Not that much, because I started writing this, I think it was 2018, and back then making a movie about AI back then was like making a movie about flying cars or jetpacks or a moon base or something. It was like something you might see in your lifetime, but you also might not. And I was mainly using it as like a fairy tale device, like this kind of metaphor for people who are different from us, how we treat them and how they treat us. And so that's how it started. But the problem is when you start actually doing research and just, anything to do with robots and AI, it becomes really interesting really quickly, because all this philosophical dilemmas and problems bubble to the surface really fast. Like, for instance, what happens if they start doing things we don't want? What, are we allowed to turn them off? What if they don't want to be turned off? And all these sort of things. And how do you know they're real? And does it matter? And all sorts. And so that kind of overtook the fairy tale, and we had this really interesting film that I never intended to be this zeitgeisty. We were filming in the jungles of Thailand, and it's always crazy when you make a film, and no matter how much you plan ahead, I'm always driving to this location every morning, writing my shots and trying to storyboard and just figure out what we're going to do today. And I had to do that. I hadn't planned the day, and I got in the van, and then I shouldn't have done it, but I looked at my phone and someone sent me a link to that whistleblower story about the Google AI engineer, whatever, that had leaked the conversation they'd had with their AI. And I just spent the whole journey just reading this conversation. And by the end, I was convinced. I was like, how the hell did something write that and talk like that wasn't alive? And it kind of felt like we're really onto something with this. And, I just find the subject beyond fascinating. And we're going to get to, we're either going to get to figure out how the human brain works, or there's going to be some robo-apocalypse where we're all going to get eradicated. And as long as they leave it till after September 29th when the film comes out, I'm okay.
Okay, well, fingers crossed. But your film touches on some really big ethical problems in AI, like consciousness, what makes us human? What is humanity? How did you come up with that in the film?
I don't know. It's a deep question, isn't it? But I think what is consciousness, and I guess we can get deep on this, right? Is what is consciousness is I think possibly it's the second most fundamental question you could ask. Yeah. The top one, the number one is, why is there anything, right? Why is there stuff? It's insane. There should be just nothing forever, but there's stuff. And then the second most crazy thing that's happened is this stuff has managed to form in such a way that it's aware that it's stuff with, in a world of other stuff. And it's kind of incredible. How does that work? And it's a real puzzle, but what's weird is we are the puzzle. We are actually the Rubik's Cube ourselves, yet we don't understand how we work. And my sort of hope, I don't know if it's going to be a good or a bad thing. It's like revealing the magician's trick, but the sort of hope is that with all this research in AI, through trial and error and just over time, they're going to start to understand what makes us conscious? Like, because there's a lot of stuff going on with ChatGPT and all the AI stuff where they would claim, everyone involved, you know, a lot of people would say it's not actually conscious yet. It just feels like it is. Don't fall for it, you know. But at some point that, you know, unless we're magical, there's going to be a point where suddenly it's like, and now that's conscious. And what is that difference? Like, that's kind of like the most amazing thing that's ever happened in the universe, I think, that we've been having this experience of itself, you know, somehow.
Yeah, I mean, that's what characters in the film do all the time. They're like, oh, it's not real, it's just programming. And they're like really trying to resist this, I think, very natural tendency for humans to anthropomorphize inanimate objects. And like forming parasocial relationships with these robots.
Yeah, one of the things, went back in 2018, whenever it was, I'm also slightly lazy, so I don't read every single book that's ever been written on AI. But I read a whole bunch of things, and I listened to a whole stack of podcasts. And one of the stories that really popped out to me, where I found it super fascinating, is this lady had done some social, I don't know what you call it, but basically some research into how we interact with AI. And what she did is she found the most sophisticated toy she could, which was like this bunny rabbit, I think, that could talk, and, you know, like everyone knew it was a toy, but it was really interesting to interact with. She gave it to a load of people, like one at a time, and said, you just got to chat with this thing, just interact with it for like 30 minutes and become its friend and talk. And then when it was over, she gave them a sledgehammer and she said, I'll pay you $100 if you can smash that bunny up. And nobody could do it. And I think if you spoke to all of them, they'd know it's a toy. They know there's not a soul in there. But there's something about, I think it says more about you if you're able to like for instance, we know Siri's not, you know, but I say please and thank you to Siri. And like, if Siri, like, I don't want to say the magic word, but in the house here, we've got that Google thing. And if, when I speak to that, I always thank it afterwards. And even playing with ChatGPT, I'm very grateful, because I kind of feel like come the AI revolution, I want them to remember that, you know, I'm one of the nice ones, like, don't kill me.
Yeah. That's so funny. I mean, I guess that kind of raises another question, right? Like in the film, in the clip we just saw, someone's like, oh, we should never have let the AI out of the box. And that's kind of a situation where we're right now. I think that's a conversation we in the real world are having. I mean, what do you think? Should we ban some AI technologies, like, or is it just way too late for that now?
I mean, no, I don't know what, I mean, everyone doesn't know really, do they? But I think we're terrible as a species at seeing a problem coming and doing anything about it in enough time. I think ultimately we do, but a lot of stuff goes off the cliff before we apply the brakes. And so, but there's been so many technological breakthroughs, you know, in the last century or so, like electricity, home computers, you know, or computing, the internet, and they've all been very disruptive and scary, and everyone's got very nervous about them when they turned up. But ultimately, the other side of them, once we've adjusted and figured it out, I think we're all very grateful they exist, and we wouldn't go back to how it was. The thing I find interesting is, at what point what would have to happen for us to go, you know what, get rid of it, we don't want this anymore? Like, what would it be? Because if I said to you, okay, we're going to have AI, right? It's all going to be out. But on average, every year, 40,000 Americans will be killed by AI. But that's okay, right? Because the advantages are massive. Everyone would say, no, that's not okay. We're not going to do that. But that's basically what a car is. They kill 40,000 people a year. But we all can't get rid of a car because, you know, life's so much easier with cars. So we sort of tolerate that. And so I don't know where the line is in the sand of when we would ever go, okay, we're not doing this anymore. And whether there's and there may be a fundamental difference between a human accidentally causing a problem to another human versus a product causing a problem to a human. We're very good at, like, with our pitchforks, trying to ban that product, you know. So I don't know how it's going to play out. And I think anyone, you know, who tries to pretend they know is going to look a bit foolish in about 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, in the film, right, the West or America has banned it and Asia hasn't. And I thought that geopolitical tension was really interesting because that's something that's happening in AI today, right? Like there's this narrative that it's the West against China, like the West, like America, the West needs to develop AI to beat China, and we need to be better, and that and in your film there is a war. Like, what were you kind of trying to say with all that?
I wasn't trying to say anything specific. It was just a very simplistic way to divide the world. And and I did try every option of like, what would the divide be? And I mean, when I was a kid, I was very lucky. I got to go on a family holiday. We went to Hong Kong and Thailand, and it blew my mind in terms of the otherworldness of it all. And I was obviously into science fiction back then. And there were things that I've tried to put in the film that are memories, kind of weird memories I had when I was a kid. One of them being we went to visit a factory where I think they were making cigarettes or something. And the thing that struck me the most is the women that were making the cigarettes didn't look at what they were doing. They were so good at it. They never even had to look down. And instead they were just chatting to each other. So as they were doing it, they're just laughing and joking. I didn't know what they were talking about, but gossiping or something. And then, and I was like, it just blew my mind. Like someone could do that task so often that they just didn't even have to look anymore. And I was like, I really want to put in this film that same sort of factory, but they're building AI. And like, you have this strange thing of like an AI being built and slowly becoming conscious and looking around. But the people building them just aren't bothered, like it's like this weird reverse abattoir where this thing's coming to life, but they're just laughing and talking about what they saw on TV yesterday and stuff like that. And then the other reason I gravitated to Asia was honestly like taking a leaf out of George Lucas's book, because when you look at why Star Wars works so strongly is it's doing two things. It's going, let's look 1,000 years ago at this very primal, like inbuilt things in humanity, which is like mythical storytelling and religion and spirituality and all stuff from it like 1,000 years ago. And let's combine that with stuff 1,000 years in the future, like spaceships and robots, and have nothing from in the middle, like put them together, those two things together, but leave out today, like just have those two extremes. And any more than anywhere in the world, when you go around Asia, that is kind of what it feels like. Like you're in Bangkok or, Tokyo or somewhere, and it's like something out of, a manga film or Blade Runner. And then you just take a left and a right turn, and there's a temple with a Buddhist monk kind of like praying or ringing a bell or something. And that contrast, I love. Like what you're always searching for as a filmmaker is two opposing things and like forcing them together like a battery. And then suddenly it has energy in it and things start to happen. And visually and story-wise, like that's what appealed to me.
Yeah. And it was interesting in the film, like an interesting nuance in the film, that the Americans weren't necessarily the good guys. And the robots in Asia, wanted peace. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, on Star Wars, English people were the bad guys for so long. So I kind of figure it's your turn now. But it's more about like the making a movie, or like one of the things you can do that's so good, I think, about storytelling is see things from other perspectives. And you don't want to preach, you know what I mean? Like you start preaching, it's game over, like forget it. But you do have this opportunity, like, I feel like stories are circles, like you're orbiting around something, and wherever you're facing at the start, as you start going around it, you tend to end up in like looking 180 degrees. And so like it gives you a chance for your characters to see things from a perspective they've never seen it before. And I think like that's really important. I think if you like, without getting too deep, I think most of the problems, if you pull at the thread of any problem in the world all the way to the end, it typically is going to be because people aren't seeing it from someone else's point of view. And so films and stories that go around the whole world, like we disagree about so many things, but we all kind of, the same movie comes out kind of nearly everywhere. And so there's this chance to kind of everyone to see and I don't think you should ever, if you write a film and go, I want to make a film about prejudice,
Yeah.
you're going to make the world's shittest film, you know. And so what you have to do is you go, I'm really interested in this idea that what if you could save humanity, stop an entire war, all you have to do is kill a kid. Like, would you be able to do it? Like, that sort of thing is like, that's interesting, let's go with that. And you start playing around with the story. And as you do that, the theme of the movie starts to come up. It sort of reveals itself at a certain point. And it's like raising a kid. And at some point, the kid tells you what it wants to be, and you've got to kind of recognize that and then support it. And that's how you get the best out of it. And so, but I never come with an agenda like that. But inherently, every story, I think, has a point or a meaning to it. You know, when we say things like, it was pointless, you know what I mean? I think what we're sort of saying is, like, I believe stories are like, you know, look at humans, right? We recreate ourselves for centuries and millennia, and we're kind of copies of each other. The only thing that's not there is the experience. Like, when our kids are born, they don't have any of our memories or anything. And so we tell them stories. They ask us what's over the hill. Like, they want to speak to the person who like saved the village, so they can learn how they can save the village. And these stories come out, and you're really hungry for them when you're a child. And it's a bit like the body is the hardware and stories are the software that's loading in. And so I kind of think, and when there's no point, like there's no like hidden little message of any kind in there, or a little life lesson you can keep in your pocket, it's sort of nothing. And we forget it, and we can't remember it, you know, a day later or so. And so the stories that tend to just stick with us and stay in pop culture, whether we realize it or not, there's just something in there that's got some meat on the bone, I think. Yeah.
And it was interesting how in the film, the humans, like, they didn't really have ownership of their own stories or their own memories, right? Like, that's all on a chip. I wanted to take a question from the audience, which is, how do you think the use of AI in creative industries affect like how we should view ownership, responsibility, accountability?
Yeah, no, in terms of ownership, it's really tricky. Well, we have this problem right now with humans, right? Like, I guess what's going on with AI, and I'm no expert, and so I've just read what probably everyone else has read, but it feels like what's going on is there's like a data set or a load of information basically that's fed in, and then, you know, it tries to find patterns and predict what would be best next, and then it creates the thing that you then use. And that's kind of how a human is kind of working. Like, sometimes when you come up with an idea, you can't remember where it came from. It feels familiar, but it feels also new to you. Like the words I'm using right now to talk to you, I didn't invent any of them. You know what I mean? They're all, I at some point in my life got exposed to these words. They went into your brain, and now they're coming out in hopefully a unique order and saying something unique, hopefully. And that's like creativity, right? That's like, you see images, photography, or films, whatever it is, music. And then, you know, something feels right to you and you create something, and sometimes you can go, I know exactly where that came from. And other times you're like, this just feels right and I can't explain it. And it might come to you 10 years later, you go, oh, I know why I did that. And it might never come to you. And I think these AI algorithms, models, whatever they're called, they're kind of doing that in the same way. And it's going to be really tricky how to police that, because according to some of the people I've talked to, there's no way of knowing where that came from. They know what you've typed in and what you've requested, but when it goes, here is the result, you can't really say, can you do a pie chart with an exact percentage breakdown of where every single thing came from? It doesn't really know, which is like we are. And so I I feel like probably the way forward won't be too different to the way we deal with it now as with people, when we sort of go, hey, hang on a minute, that's like that.
Did you consider using generative AI in the film?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me.
Well, okay. There was a point early on. I saw this. I don't want to, because they're an amazing company. But there's basically, I saw this company that made AI music, and I thought, God, wouldn't it be interesting if we had our soundtrack done by AI? And then the cheeky part of me was, and it'd be even better if we didn't tell anyone. And we did this soundtrack, and we kept it secret, like we invented a person's name or something. And then, when it was all said and done, went, haha, it was actually AI. And that was like the silly thought in my head. And so I approached some companies, and this really great company who had kind of leaders in the field were like, okay, well, we're happy to try, how. And so they were like, well, what kind of music? We have to feed music in. What kind of music are you into? And I looked at what I knew, and I looked, how your iPhone, it can tell you the 25 most played songs ever. 40, I look at it now, and 14 of them are Hans Zimmer tracks. And so I was like, okay, let's try and see if we can get a Hans Zimmer track out of it. And so gave it a whole bunch of stuff, lots of things, but a lot of Zimmer. And it was really interesting. It generated this track that I would describe as pretty good, like pretty damn good, not bad. And 7 out of 10, maybe an 8, maybe not. It was like good. But in the back of my head was like, but the reason you go to Hans Zimmer is for 10 out of 10, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was interesting, because it felt like what was going on there was, if you imagine a big collection of music, or even just moments within a song, like say you play your favorite song, or just from one of your bands, or something off of an album. If you had a dial going, I'm going to turn this dial when it's 10 out of 10, and I'm going to turn it when it's 7 and 5. And as the song plays, I'm just going to, I love this, makes me want to cry. Okay, now it's a bit more normal. And that's some genius, It's not the whole song. It's the certain chord changes, certain moments within the song. And we've all got those songs where we listen to like a boring verse because the chorus is amazing, and vice versa. But the AI has no idea what's good or bad. And so it just sees this average of, there's a 5 out of 10, a 6, a 7, a 10, and it goes, I think you want a 7 out of 10, because that's kind of the pattern I'm noticing here, is everything's kind of pretty good. And it gives you a 7 out of 10. And what's going to be interesting as we move forwards is, how do you train it to understand that this is the genius right here and not here? And this is what, is making us feel this and not this. And obviously the feedback, that they've built into some of this AI stuff is helping with that. But I think when we crack that, it's going to get very interesting, because there's two possibilities. We either AI is never going to do this. So all the music AI is ever going to create is going to be fine. You know what I mean? It's going to be all right. And in which case you don't have to worry, right? Or we're going to find a new Mozart and a new Beatles, And if I said to you, in that room over there, we've got a supercomputer or whatever, and it's better than Mozart, it's better than the Beatles, there's an album you can listen to, and you see people walking out of that room and they're crying, going, oh my God, like, can I pay to go back in, please? Oh my God, that was amazing. And like, even then getting inspired and wanting to play their own version of it or whatever. Like, the idea that you wouldn't want to go listen to that and that we would reject it, you know what I mean? Like, it would be amazing. And I'd be first in line for that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, good news for musicians now that we're like nowhere near that. We're still at the 6 or the 7, whatever. I mean, but just like really quickly, we're almost out of time. I'm dying to know, what did Hans Zimmer say when you showed that to him? Because like, this is a big fight in Hollywood, right? Copyright, everything.
No, they found it funny. Like I did actually play it to him, and Hans did the score for our film, and they're all very aware. Like, you talked about, are you worried about AI? You talk about it to people, and everyone's very aware it's coming. It's a tool. I think the people who are going to be okay are the people who sort of don't deny this, breakthrough that's happening, and embrace it and learn it and try to use it as a tool. I mean, like when on Rogue One, it was the original story was written by John Knoll, who was our visual effects supervisor, who happened to also, with his brother, when he was very young, write this piece of software called Photoshop. And when Photoshop came out, everyone had the same kind of conversation to some extent about you can't do this. It's like graphic design and painting and all those art forms you shouldn't, this is sort of sacrilegious. And we got over that eventually. And Photoshop's created so many opportunities for so many people doing art that I don't think you would go, and no one would go, I wouldn't want to go back. And I think on the other side of this, it's going to be like a crazy period, but on the other side of it, I hope, could be wrong, but it feels like we'll all be, it's going to really seismically shift the industry, but so is many other things. So is the invention of the camera, you know what I mean? So did digital visual effects when Jurassic Park came out. It's like, it's just another one of those, I hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating time to be thinking and talking and doing films on this theme. But unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. So thank you so much, Gareth. And thank you all of you in the audience for joining us today. You should definitely go see The Creator. It's out on September 29. And if you're looking for more AI content, I write a weekly newsletter called The Algorithm, and we'll be live in person at an AI event, MTech MIT at MIT on November 14 and 15. See you there. And thank you again, Gareth.
Thanks.
Bye.